So my fiancé godfather told us a story that happened to him, which is the reason why I don't go around to his house. His wife's dad passed away, and they moved into the house. They were cleaning out the house of his old things, and their old thermostat sat in box. It is really cold and vintage, so they look for a space to hang it. By the end of the day, it is still sat in the box as they can't find anywhere to hang it. They go to sleep and wake up at the time her father passed away to footsteps above. Their head both a little creeped out. They stay up with lights up and try to watch TV to take their mind off it. Couple days pass, and it's his daughter Jess' birthday, and his wife made a birthday cake. He opens the fridge and below the door, he see a pair of feet, like someone standing behind the fridge door. He closed the fridge, however there, no one there. Creep out, he quickly moves into dining room. Creepy things happen for the next month. Footsteps around the house, things being moved, dark figures appearing and a man voice calling them. Well, they finally got chance to look at this thermometer thing, and they find a spot to hang it. And once it was hung up, a chill rushes up his spine, but warm, then feels his body. Once it was hung up, everything stopped. They don't dare take it down again. But yep, it's a bit weird. Not sure what this bloody thermometer thing was, but seemed to have a significant meaning to it.
My dad worked in security. I got into it after he passed. One night I was called on my night off. They need someone to go fill in on another site. I never worked this site before, but hey, over time, I accepted ... It was one of my dad's old sites, so it is about 0200 I am doing around. I enter one of the buildings and I think I see someone moving up ahead. It is 0200 and the building is locked. There should not be anyone in there. I quietly close the door behind me and creep up for a closer look. At the end of the hall is a security guard, which is odd as I am the only guard on duty at the time. So I am eyeing this guy, and I notice the uniform. It is for a company that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, it is for the company my dad worked for when he was at this site. So it hits me that it is my dad. I'm standing there watching him. He is apparently doing a round of the building. I am patrolling, so I watch him. He looks directly at me as if he could see me. He looks at me for about 30 seconds or so. He then turns the corner. I run to catch up with him, but he was gone. Almost 2 years later, I still swear I actually saw him that night. I don't know if it was a ghost, if I was hallucinating, because it was one of his old posts and I was emotional, or if maybe somehow time loops exist and I actually saw him working the site in the past. I honestly don't know, but every time I have a night off and they can't find anyone to fill in, I jump at it, no longer for the overtime, but with the hope that whatever happened that first time happens again. I have filled in there over 20 times since that encounter, and I haven't seen anything since.
I was walking home one night from my grandmother's house. We lived in a village in rural Ireland. Granny's house was on the outskirts of the village, so I had to walk up a narrow country lane to get to Granny's house and back down the lane to get toward the village. My granddad was dying and the priest have him the last rites. He pulled through the night and my granny told me to go home and get a bit of a rest. I reluctantly agreed and walked home. Down the country lane I've been walking on since I was a boy, only this time it seemed weird in some way. Almost eerie, and I never get spooked. I pushed the feeling to the side as my mind was in shock about Granddad. I was walking toward the bottom of the lane when I noticed a blur of white down the bottom of the lane beside one of the farmer's gates to the field beside my grandparents' house. I thought it was a lamb escaped. It happens a lot. I walked toward it to investigate. When I walked toward the blur of white, it felt like electricity entered every inch of my body. The hairs were standing up on my arms and what was left on the top of my head. I stood frozen in perpetual fear as the figure was an old hunched woman in a white robe, and she just screamed the most merciful scream. The guttural scream was so frightening I actually stopped breathing with sheer fear. I looked up into her face and saw nothing, just a blur. The cry was ungodly, like a mother finding out their child is dead. The most scariest scream I've ever witnessed. Adrenaline must have kicked in because I legged it straight back up the lane toward Granny's house and legged it in the front door. I could hear my granny rushing out Granddad's room crying. She said, "Grandad's gone." Imagine he just passed away within the 5 minutes of me leaving and encountering the woman on the lane. I remember telling my elderly aunt and a few family members about the woman, and they said that she was a friend of the family by now. She only appears when someone is going to die. I thought they were taking the piss until my father, a born skeptic and very religious man, confirmed the woman's existence. In some families in Ireland, she would be called the Banshee.
When I was a kid, we lived pretty far out of town, heading up into the mountains, right next to old railroad tracks. The area was big for logging, and at one time, gold mining. I remember waking up in the middle of the night. The moon was bright and made it easy to see. For some reason, I peeked out the blinds, and about 20 yards away, standing on the road, was a man. He was wearing an old miner's hat. and was just standing completely still, staring at our house. I have no idea if he could see me, but I was frozen. After about 10 minutes, I eased away from the window and laid in bed, trying not to think about it. About an hour later, still not able to sleep, I checked the window again, and he was still there. It freaked me out, so I refused to look out the window again that night. I kind of forgot about this incident, until several years later, the exact same thing happened again. Another bright moon. I once again woke up in the middle of the night and felt compelled to look out the window. Same man, same hat, standing in the same spot, just staring. I never talked to anyone about it, and I'm not sure if it was something paranormal or just a man with a creepy habit.
When I was around 7, I had been feeling sick one day and fell asleep on the sofa in my dad's office, which has 2 doors and is between the kitchen and a hallway. I must have fallen asleep in the early evening and slept like a rock until I woke up in the middle of the night with our 2 cats locked in the office with me, and they were meowing frantically. I was sick, a little kid, and I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there and cried. After a couple minutes, my older brother must have heard me, which was weird because he used to listen to wear his Walkman headphones at night, because he opened the door from the kitchen side and reached out for me as if to say, "All right, come here." He had his Walkman and headphones in the other hand. I took his hand and he walked me downstairs to his bed, and he let me sleep with him that night. Years later, when I was a teenager, I was retelling that story at some family event, and my brother cut me off to say that he didn't come upstairs. I walked down to his room. I had woken up disoriented and scared. There was no way I left that room by myself. I was also skittish of my dad's basement at that age, hence needing the escort. I vividly remember just sitting there crying when he opened the door, while he has equally specific memories of me showing up next to his bed. So to this day, who or what took my hand and walked me downstairs is anyone's guess.
I managed an internet cafe comic shop that was in an RO 150-year-old building. On this particular day, we had a bunch of people that wanted to keep gaming after hours, so we closed quite late. After finally getting all the customers out after midnight, I was doing some paperwork in the back office. I was alone in the store for about an hour when I looked up out the 2-way mirror and saw someone standing near the front of the store. Most of the lights were off, but I could clearly see a man wearing a fedora standing by a front cash register. The building we were in was quite large, and the distance from the back of the store to the front was close to 100 feet. We had big bay windows backlight by street lamps, and I could clearly see a person standing like they were waiting for service. I cursed myself for forgetting to lock the door, walked down the hallway and out into the main store area, and there was no one there. Double-checked the door, locked tight. I felt like I wasn't alone, but after flicking the lights back on, it seemed I was. Lights off. Back to my papers. Half an hour later, I felt myself being watched. I looked up out the mirrored window again and saw the same shadow, except this time it was a few feet to the left and much closer. A man on the short side, wearing a fedora, facing the security window. I immediately grabbed my keys and left out the back door.